What's up, everyone? It is Amira, and I am back for my weekly upload to help you in your career search and career progression, and making sure that you are getting some tidbits that will be very, very helpful as you search for your next opportunity. So, what I wanted to talk about today is how you approach interviews and questions that you should absolutely be asking when you are interviewing. I can't tell you the number of times when I've been hiring for a role and we are interviewing a candidate, they might be a little dry or maybe a little nervous, or they had great, answers. But when you stop and say, okay, what questions do you have? To say, I don't have any questions, that's wrong. And let me tell you why. As much as an interview is about you and your experience, the interview is also about you and wanting to work at this company. So if you don't take the time to ask really pointed questions that you can kind of uncover a little bit more about the role, a little bit more about the company, and then show that you are invested by asking some strategic questions, you are actually doing a disservice to yourself. And you may find out that if you don't ask questions, and like, let's say you actually got the role, you might be a little surprised, and not in a good way, if you didn't ask questions about things that are important to you and what you want to have in your next role. So the first question that I would always ask is this a backfill or is this a new role? Why do I recommend that? Because new roles, while they're very, very exciting, often have issues with what the expectation may be. So it's not a bad thing necessarily. I think it's a very exciting thing, but you need to ask questions on how you're going to be measured in this role. What are the expectations? What are the challenges? What are some things that you think might be important for me to know as I approach this new role? If it's a backfill, again, you can still ask, so what are the metrics that I would be held accountable to? So that way I can make sure that it's something that I really, really can perform and do well at. That is not a bad thing to say, and it actually shows that you're really invested. Next question should be something about the actual interviewers. So you should be going on their LinkedIn, you should be researching the company, and ask them questions about when they came to the company, what was their favorite thing, what was the biggest challenge, and how are you going to be able to get the support that you need in this role from other people who work at the company. That's a really key question, because you will often see a little flicker in the face of, their time joining the company and what their onboarding was like. And if they say there's no onboarding, we just need you to get ramped up as soon as possible, I would be very weary of that, mainly because a lot of companies are kind of taking a you have to get the experience, you have to dive right in approach. And while that can work and sometimes has to work, a lot of times because companies don't have the best onboarding, the issue with that is if you don't have good onboarding, how are you going to be able to perform effectively? And if a company is not offering you that opportunity to get that onboarding, get that knowledge, perhaps have a mentor at the company who you can go to with questions, or a coach, you may want to consider that, because down the line, while it may not be an issue, and I've certainly taken roles where there was very limited onboarding, it does become a problem with your knowledge. It does become a problem with what the expectations are, and you may feel that you are not prepared for this role, and it could end up becoming a really resentful position for you. The next one I would ask are questions that are important to you. What happens during after hour issues? Like what is the expectation? What is the expectation about working evening and weekends? And this is important, because if a company is saying that they value work-life balance, and that is definitely something that has become a top priority since the pandemic and their great resignation, you maybe end up having some long nights. And I really recommend, when you do ask these types of questions, that you are also reviewing the reviews from former or current employees at that company on Glassdoor. It's very rare that I haven't seen a company on Glassdoor, or maybe it's a startup, so there's not that many, but you still should still do research into what the expectations may be. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. Do research on what the expectations should be. The next question that I would absolutely ask is, what is my 30, 60, 90 expectation? And what that means is, what are the things they are looking for you to accomplish in your first 90 days that you could be adding value? If you are not given a 30, 60, 90, or it's like, I don't know, we'll do this with the hiring manager, or we'll do this with the team, I would say, what really helps you is a prescriptive, this is what I'm expecting. So that way you can jump in and say, I want to jump in and create value from day one. the same time, I want to make sure that I have the opportunity to do that by knowing what my expectations are. Top of this, as you're asking these questions, the hiring manager and HR is going to know that you are invested in trying to make sure that this is the opportunity for you. And then finally, another question that I would make sure that I ask is, what is the career progression? Is there a career path for this role? If you are not looking for any progression and you just want the role and that's it, totally fine. If you don't want to stay in that role forever, then ask them, what is a typical progression for someone in this role? What are people in this role right now, or people who have had this role in the past, end up going on to do? Because you also want to make sure that you're doing something that's going to challenge you. And if it's not something that's going to challenge you, then you may end up becoming really resentful down the line because you're kind of doing the same thing, rinse and repeat. Perhaps it was in your last role. So these are a couple things that I wanted to share out with everyone. Let me know in the comments, or if you have any questions, send me a message. All of my contact information is actually in the YouTube channel link, and I hope that this is helpful for everyone. Bye.